Here's how you read wrong and how to fix them. Number one, you schedule it in a way that 1 hour of learning, you read 1 hour for 1 hour, don't you? I used to do that mistake too. What you need to do is cut out the time for taking action. It can be as simple as just, let's say you've got 45 minutes of reading and, you know, 15 minutes of action for 1 hour. And even if you can't scale down the, action to do it for 15 minutes straight after like reading about it, that 15 minutes is like sufficient enough to like add it to grab your, daily planner or your calendar on your phone app and add the task, to take action then. And, because if you are committed to read a book, you might as well commit fully to it and, embrace the, action steps and challenges as they come. Because that approach to reading a book will really reap you way more. Like easily you can get like 2-3x more out of the book than like a person who just, does that cute reading one book a week for ego and, just kind of like speed reads just like kind of like speed reads it and, takes action on only like, I don't know, 3 out of 8 points of the book. The next thing people mess up is that they either don't highlight or spend way too much time like highlighting it. Like, those times where you were like, oh shit, like that page is like like you just start reading a page and you just start highlighting and like you highlighted most of the page, wasting like quite some time, to highlight it, when, you could just do what I do and make one pen better than a dozen highlighters with just these. When you use brackets to highlight different things, you can use different brackets to signify different meaning. Like you would use different color highlighters. Like for example, closed bracket is very important stuff for me over the like text. Like you open the bracket before and like close when it would end the highlights. I use like closed brackets for like stuff that is the best stuff like out of the book. Like if you are to read only this out of this book, read that. That's the stuff I would highlight with. I just highlight with brackets. Stuff I highlight with those like arrowy shaped open brackets is basically like stuff that's like nice to read when you're going for second time through the book, but that aren't that essential. But it's nice to read. And then I do one underline when it's like a nice quote, not necessarily like even out of the like of the author, but like just quote it there. When it's like a nice quote, I single line it to like to transfer it to the commonplace book where I keep the quotes that I come across. And if it's double lined, that means that this quote is so good that I marked it for myself to memorize it because it's so important or like so good. Then when I do when I find something like really like when I bracket highlight it and it's like crucial point or whatever, like when it's like super important, I just do an exclamation mark right there, like at the end of the bracket. And most important of those, when I come across the action step, I just do a square closed bracket and I add like a dot in the beginning, like you would do in a bullet journal. Like you start from a dot and you write out the task. It marks action step, and that's so that when you are going, because people do one thing a bit wrong, because like even people who like highlight stuff, what they do? They highlight stuff for when they read the book second time to maybe like go over the highlights only, but they just highlight something and like don't transfer the knowledge to ensure like it stays in like in circulation. Like, you know, people just like assume that their brain will remember to do something. It's like, you know, it's like doing the shopping list in your mind versus on like a piece of paper. It's like, yeah, it's okay to do that sometimes, but it's like it's less reliable. And with something as crucial as like, you know, let's say there's like an insight that could literally change your life a period over like a period of, you know, a week, a month, you know, like, would you leave it up to chance? Of course not. You would set up the system for it. And, you know, and what I recommend to do is to go through the chapter once, and even if you go through the chapter on like a few sittings, you know, because I don't know, it takes like for you like 2 hours for like to go through the chapter, and like it's like 2 sessions or something, you know, or even more. Then yeah, at the end when you're done reading the chapter, you just go back through it and go only through the highlighted text. You will get the refreshing of the information. Like, you will just know what was the said for, like, you know, what was said next to it. Because, and what I do is after I finish reading the chapter, I open it on the, you know, first page of the chapter, and I go through the whole chapter reading only stuff I highlighted, because it will give you like an idea of like, okay, here's like the whole picture of the chapter, and now you're like, it's viable to make like a whole note that, you know, some like summarizes stuff, or, you know, now it's like and now it's like viable to make like a whole note that like summarizes stuff, and you know, takes away the key points from the chapter, and, you know, to highlight the action steps, especially so that, you know, when you inevitably, you know, fall for the trap and stop doing the thing that was working, just because, you know, you forget it once randomly, you forget it twice from time to, like, if you forget it once from time to time, you forget it twice in a row eventually, and, you know, you start to like forget it more and more, until, like, you know, not doing it becomes the habit that, you know, outlives the old one. And and essentially, you know, when you realize that and you catch yourself like, oh, I haven't been doing the thing that was working so well for me for like a week, 2 weeks, a month even, then you're like, oh, well, I had like notes from it, so like you know, I will just check real quick in like this notebook or that one, open up the page, and you have like full guide on like implementing it in like less than like one A5 page. And instead of like needing to go through the same book like again. So it's like, it saves you time in the long run, and ensures that, you know, you keep consistent to it, because, like, you know, you'll just have like an easy reminder for how to get back into the thing. And the third thing that people miss out on, the intention, the why behind, why am I reading this book, why am I not reading that one, like, you know, what do I want to learn from this book, what do I need to improve, and, you know, what book will be the optimal vehicle for it. And for that, you need to, like, you know, set up that beforehand, like, you know. And it's good to like remind yourself, like, if you don't like writing in your note, like annotating, grab a sticky note, put it in like the front of the book. Like, this is a book I read a long time ago, so I didn't do that, but like in new books that I read, I usually take a sticky note, I just slap it in the front on the blank page, and I've got like intention, like you would have in your bullet journal, like, what do I want to take out of this book? And how do you know what you can take out of the book? Because you've read the summary. Like if you watched my previous video, which details about how to read more, you will know that I'll go quickly over here that you need to to get the most out of the book and not waste time. You need to just read the summary or listen to one and decide whether you want to read the book in the first place, and as well as if you were to read that, well, what chapters can you just skip because they are not useful for you, because they repeat the same stuff from the other book that you've read and implemented already, so it's like it's kind of like, okay, it's pointless kind of to do that. You can speed read genuinely if you want to still get the most value. The stuff that you've been or do that you are already doing, you might just speed read it because you might find a good quote that just makes it worth it. Like literally, sometimes a quote that takes one or two lines out of the book is worth reading a whole chapter. And when you kind of speed read with a fucking pointer and you just slide it through the page and follow up on that and kind of go through the whole chapter in record time, you'll find those few sentences that you'll just stop and go over and over and over again on those sentences and be like, oh damn, that's really fun. That's really good. That made reading the whole chapter worth it. And then you just kind of highlight it appropriately and you go on further. But you just need to every time you pick up a book, look at the page 1 with that sticky note, and remind yourself, why have you read the book? Intention is, you need to every time you pick up the book, you need to remind yourself of the intention. What I did was when I was reading the 5 a.m. Club, I wasn't doing that yet, I'll be honest with you. But when I was reading Never Finished, when I was reading The Law of Attraction, I was doing that. If you're reading an ebook, just highlight the main page, first page, and just make a note on your Kindle to do that, or just kind of keep the note, stick to your Kindle. Literally, I just had my my Kindle cover, and I've had a sticky note that was on the screen, that every time I was opening the Kindle, I just read the sticky cover when it was booting, and I just took it off when it was done, and I started reading. It was pretty good, and that's the thing I was doing, to remind myself if what I can kind of skip and skim over the stories and such. Yeah, the stories I kept the understanding. I wasn't speeding not necessarily what the fuck I'm doing, because there's no point of doing that. But I was kind of going faster through that. Then I was going through the granular main lessons, the chapter, when the chapter was finishing, those sort of things. When at the end of the chapter, the author just drops some gold and just kind of summarizes the main key points and lessons from the chapter. Next thing about intention is if you already fulfilled it, you can stop. If you got out of the book what you wanted to get out of the book, you can actually stop reading it. Yeah, if it's if you're I don't know, if you just if you like the book, because me, I got what I needed before I finished the 5 a.m. Club, but I finished the book just because I really like the author, the way he writes the book, the amazing quotes that you can find here. It just made it worth it for me to finish the book. But genuinely, there's a few books that I kind of got out of them what I needed, and I didn't bother to finish them. I remember the 10x rule. I think I just saw Alfred kind of starting to thank people at the end of the book and such, stuff like that. It was oh yeah, there's not gonna be much to useful. Yeah, and I finished the book a few months later, and I was sitting on couch in a shopping mall, with waiting for my parents to get out of the shop. So I've just done a few last pages, and yeah, it was kind of satisfying to finish the book. Like like every time you kind of, especially not with an ebook, but like with ebook too, but like with a physical book, it's really satisfying to go over the last few pages and be like, you just close it and it's like, it's done. You get that feeling of like satisfaction that you finished the book. And yeah, it's nice, but like ultimately when you can kind of like tell with from like this the summary and such that like the author is just at this point like saying like stuff to like finish the book. Ending of like Can't Hurt Me was like pretty good because it also taught me a few things, but for example, like there are books that did not, like the ending was like it wasn't necessary to take away the lessons. So like that's the thing, like if you need to like if you feel like you've got everything that you could have out of the book, reading it becomes like less interesting for you, don't worry about switching. You can just do that. There's no problem in doing this, and it's fine. And some people maybe like have that limiting belief, be like, I paid for a whole book, so I should probably read the whole thing. Yeah, but then there comes the fact of like, oh, what's the better ROI? Whether it's like, is a bit of dopamine worth finishing the book? Because yeah, like you can. And by the way, before you read any book, ask people about it. Ask people whether would you say like reading start to finish isn't necessary, or would just reading this few things from it be enough to get the most out of the book? And depending on the answer, you'll just know that whether to finish the book or not. Because when like the worst thing that you can do really there is to like be closed in that school mindset where you need to go cover to cover through the book. And because of the fact that you don't want to read the book because like it gets boring, or you kind of like feel like you want to read the other things, so you start reading less. Like that's the thing I'm telling you to not do. That's the thing, like focus on reading what you want to read, because you will read more. You will be you will not have that feeling of like dread that this is a chore. You will see it as something fun. Like even if you're going through the whole chapter again, through the highlights, you will be like, oh, I remember this quote. It was so good when I read it the first time. It was like, this is so inspirational. Like or something like, oh yeah, that thing, I need to really do that. And it's like, I'm gonna do it today evening, and I'm gonna do it tomorrow, or like and stuff like that. I think that's about it from this video. I've ranted on and on for way longer than necessary, and hope you got something out of it. If you are interested in reading more books and hearing more about the summary strategy, head out to my YouTube channel, and the video before this one is the one that will tell you more about this, and also a few other very crucial tips. Anyhow, in the next video I'm gonna cover my catch-all system so that you can retain all the knowledge you get from the book and not forget it after a week like most people do. So see you in the next video. Bye.